Welcome to the Resource Podcast, where we take a slightly sassy, fully feminist approach to creating healthy relationships and a joyful life. I'm your host, Tatiana Thompson, and I'm a licensed professional counselor practicing in both Arizona and Minnesota. I specialize in applying clinically proven techniques like EMDR, parts work, and neural reprogramming to help you see real, lasting change in your everyday life. Just remember, I am a licensed therapist, but I'm not your therapist. This show is for informational purposes only, and it's not a replacement for seeking personal mental health or medical advice. So join me now as we explore simple strategies for breaking toxic relationship patterns and applying simple mental health tools to your daily life. Learn how to take the small steps today that will guide you to your best life tomorrow. Hello and welcome to the Resource Podcast, the show that invites you to question everything you thought you knew about relationships and mental health so you can finally break through your stuck points and create the life you've always wanted. I'm your host, Tatiana, and I'm on a mission to help 1,000 women become emotionally and financially independent so they can choose a relationship instead of needing one. And I want to start with a quick announcement for anyone listening on Apple or Spotify. I've actually started recording these episodes with video. You can't tell that from what you're listening on. But if you want to catch them on YouTube and see my face as I discuss these things and all my fun little gestures, go ahead and check it out. It's at YouTube under the Resource Podcast again. All right. So for today's show, I'm going to throw an interesting little paradox at you. As you've probably noticed, I can be, some might say brutally, I like to say maybe painfully honest with the truth bombs I drop on the show. And with my clients, I'll be frank about that. I am very direct, and to their credit, my clients tolerate it quite well. But inversely, I believe with all my being that the most effective way to heal and to reach your goals and to become the best version of yourself is to be incredibly loving and tender with yourself. So let's say this a different way. Shame is never the answer. And if you're familiar with the work of Brené Brown, you will not be surprised by this. And she's also got the research to back it up. But I do want to say, I want to give maybe another lens to that and why that matters. Okay. So I also want to say that it seems like my incessant truth telling may be antithetical to this idea that tenderness is the way. But what I do want to say is that truth, honesty, and tenderness are actually completely aligned. See, part of being a loving person to yourself is being honest with yourself. When you're hiding from hard facts or experiences, you're actually doing yourself a disservice. Part of loving someone else is showing them the kindness to be honest with them, right? Even if that's setting a boundary so that you don't eventually blow up on them and don't want to spend time with them. But the trick here, going back to the tenderness, is that we must approach that honesty with care and kindness. I think Simon Sinek does a really great conversation around this. We cannot be careless or harsh with our truth. And as I said before, we certainly cannot use shame. So this is going to be a 2-part series. You know how I like to do that. And in this episode, I'm going to be talking about the mechanisms that cause us to use shame as a driver and why it's not helpful. But in the next episode, I'm going to provide the antidote, which, spoiler alert, is a version of using tenderness towards yourself. But I want to give you the specific techniques on how to do that so that you can stop yourself in the moment. This is going to help you thrive. If you do not show yourself tenderness and compassion, which then you send out to the rest of the world, you can't thrive. And of course, as always, I am just one voice in this whole sea of how to be a happier, healthier, more thriving person. So take that and integrate it with what you've learned from other providers or other thought leaders or other people, and combine it with what you know about yourself, because you are the expert on yourself. So in the next episode, I'm going to give you that antidote. And spoiler alert, it is going to be about tenderness towards yourself. But I want to let you know it's going to be like a step-by-step on how to do it, because this does not, maybe it does come innately to us, but we unlearn it through our experiences as humans, from the fear that we are taught, shown, the shame shame and programming that we get. So I'll teach you how to do that. But I also want you to consider, as you learn those skills, how to apply it to other relationships in your life. Because here's the truth. There is vastly, infinitely, exponentially more power behind a loving and tender act than there could ever be from an act of shame, hate, or bullying. And we know this. The bully may win for a short time, but it's not sustainable because there's no connection and loyalty and social contract built into that. And we also know this from evidence that the most powerful change makers that we've experienced in the world, Nelson Mandela, Malala, Martin Luther King Jr., Jane Addams, Mahatma Gandhi, there's a reason that they made so much progress where so little had existed. And it's because they didn't make their oppressors the villains. They learned how to use love and truth as their tools instead of hate as a weapon. And I'm here to preach this, but I also understand it is way easier said than done. I struggle myself with this probably every day as well, but I've seen it work enough times to know that it's true, and that our job is to let our parts speak their truth to us, but to ask them to move out of the way to let our higher self come forward. All right, I think this is the only way we can change the world, and that's why I want to share this with you all. Every day that an individual, you, make internal changes, this will lead to less hate and pain and suffering in the world, which leads to more love. That starts with you, that starts with me, that starts with the individual. It's not about politics. It's not about changing other people's minds, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Politics, harm to other people, is a byproduct of this not being resolved. A person who is centered and loving in themselves has no need to go harm other people. That makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So the solution lies in you and in me, and hopefully every other person. Let's model that we're going to make this change internally so that other people can see how to do it, that it's safe, and more than anything else, that it's beneficial. Okay? So let's dig into the topic for today. So that thing that's driving us, typically what we've learned to use as our motivator, is shame. And as I often do when I'm explaining my new concepts, it's going to require me to go on a little side quest to provide the framework around this. So what we're going to discuss today, first and foremost, is parts work. So parts work can be used in many different ways. I learned it first as ego state exercises, but then I learned some training in IFS, or internal family systems. And that tends to be the lens through which I practice it now. But the overarching theory around parts work is that when we experience difficult, painful, or traumatic events, or a series of like systemic issues in a family or a community, parts of us kind of like break off from the part of us that's developing, and we get stuck in time. That part kind of gets stuck in time. And IFS takes the perspective that there's a vulnerable part, also called the exile, that was helpless to deal with the issue. And they may actually be living in that scene on repeat for the rest of their lives, unless they get the support of the wiser adult self. And then there eventually becomes a protector part that comes up with a solution to reduce or escape from some of that pain for the vulnerable part. This part is protecting the vulnerable part. For example, let's give you a concrete example here. Imagine there's a person who grows up with a parent who's really emotionally erratic. Like, you don't know one day to the next what you're going to get. Maybe they drink as well, use some sort of substance, but they're all over the place. And there's an exile part that feels terrified by the unstable parent, and to this day literally cannot tolerate being around people who seem out of control or really moody. Seriously, think about this in yourself. If you grew up with a parent who was emotionally unstable, when you're around somebody else who is in a mood, or whether it's someone close to you, or you sense somebody has erratic emotions, you start tensing up. You want to fix the discomfort. So you can't tolerate this. That part gets woken up every time that they experience that in the present day, right? Like, so this is a 9-year-old self. She's the exile. She's the vulnerable one that was like, why is dad all over the place? But at some point, as you grew up, a part of you learned that if they helped that parent with cooking, childcare, stabilizing in any way, that the parent blew up a lot less frequently. Or at least you were now the special child and you got benefits from that, or you didn't get in as much trouble. So what does this part, maybe this is like a 12-year-old part that starts becoming the like mini mom of the house. She will conclude from that, I can reduce the danger that I'm in by keeping my parents stable and by being really helpful, and I don't make a fuss. I will be safe by doing this whole strategy. And thus is born the overfunctioning people-pleasing part. This could also look like a manager part that's always looking for the next task and can never fully relax. But either way, this part learned, I have a strategy to keep us safe and to keep this system a little more stable. So can you relate to any of those habits of being? I'm guessing you can, because a lot of the people who listen to my show are overfunctioners in that way. So I want to also name that there can be inverse ways of developing around this. So some people, and you may be one of them, could also develop a strategy of getting high or dissociating from reality. So maybe they discover that getting high at 13 helps them just not feel so affected by mom or dad's mood swings. So they can go hide out in their room, and that's good. That's way better than what they were experiencing, right? Separately, I do see for a lot of young men, this looks like physically standing up to the abusive parent once their body is big and strong enough. So maybe they're like 15, they've gone through enough puberty, and they finally cannot take this anger and this helplessness anymore. And they finally stand up to an abusive father or an abusive mother. And the problem with that is, first of all, I'm so glad that that child finally found a way to protect themselves. But just like with the person who's overfunctioning for the erratic parent, the point that this young man takes from this interaction is that force and bullying are the way to get your needs met. So that when any other person is in your face or too much or not giving you what you want or deserve, you learn to get aggressive. And that seems to work. In fact, even in adulthood, it seems to work, especially when we promote that for men in our society. So all this to say, many people in the world of mental health, including myself, subscribe to the idea that parts are real and that they need to be helped. And then when we help them, this allows them to stop needing to do that job so we can replace it. So here's the idea. They need to be unburdened. That's how IFS calls it. So the part has been given a job. First off, there's the exile who's been like reliving the memory on repeat to kind of warn us, don't let this happen again. Don't let people be erratic around you. But then there's the protector part, the people pleaser, the overfunctioner, the bully, or the one who's checking out with drugs. And they feel compelled to do this activity now when the exile lets them know something's happening or they sense it. And what I want to say is this did work when they were little because they didn't have other options. This literally was their only option that they could find because they couldn't leave their family. They needed their support, but it's really not serving them anymore. Now they have choices too, and that's the difference too. Bullying, drug use, overfunctioning, people-pleasing. Well, I will admit people-pleasing and overfunctioning seems to help us a lot in the current society. Well, you could say bullying does too. It's not sustainable. You're not happy when you're doing those things. So the reason it worked so well and the reason you didn't have choices is you were isolated and helpless, as were any of these people. You needed your parents to survive, literally. Like, it's not a joke. You would die without your parents. So you had to make them happy enough to keep you around and to accept you. And let's think about this too. You were trapped in your little classroom, in your school, in your community, in your church, in your dance class, in your football club. You only got to choose from like 20 to 30 people in your class. And if you got knocked out of that social hierarchy, you were screwed. You didn't get to pick your teacher. You didn't get to decide whether or not this type of education fit your learning styles or needs. I mean, think about all the autistic or neurodivergent ADHD people out there who were like being taught, read this long paragraph and then make sense of it. And they're kinesthetic learners and they need to touch things. And they're just dying of helplessness. Point being, you didn't have options, but now you do. Now you live on a planet with 7 billion other people to choose from. And I realize it's not that simple to just up and leave, but technically, now you can. Technically, back then you couldn't, right? Now you can change your job when it gets too hard or too inappropriate or too whatever. Now you can change the people you surround yourself with. Now you can get the medical or mental help that you need that you couldn't get before. Now you can leave the relationship where someone's hurting you. You literally couldn't do these things when you were little. And that's what we need to start teaching our inner parts. So my goal in therapy is to help my clients learn exactly what those exile and protector parts we're trying to accomplish and are trying to accomplish. And then we start providing it to them in a new and sustainable way from this adult place of what really the adults in your life maybe could have, maybe couldn't have, but should have been able to provide for us. Okay. So for that woman who learned that she's safest when she keeps everyone happy or by doing things, and she never makes waves, she needs to be easy and pretty and helpful and selfless. She needs to learn first and foremost in our work together or her work with her therapist, how to always validate that vulnerable part in her that got abandoned when a parent got upset. She got punished and abandoned or both. She shows that part that she will never leave them again. She will never take the side of the angry adults again either. And then she learns how to give people back their own responsibilities by setting boundaries around what she will do for them. And I'm not saying this is easy. It does not happen overnight. But as she's going along, she also has to remember to soothe the parts inside of her that are freaking out that she'll be abandoned and left for dead. But this is totally achievable. And she will gradually stop overfunctioning herself for other people and start to live a more calm, balanced, and happy life when she can start to do this. If you're enjoying this episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening. It helps the show grow so that we can create even more content to help you and others build an extraordinary life. So now that we understand some parts work, let's bring this back to why shame is driving so much of our efforts and lifestyles. One of the parts that many of us develop as it's one of those protector parts that I mentioned, it's for our survival, and it's called an introject, INTROJECT, or it's called an introjection. This is a part that develops that carries the critical messages that we received growing up. So it is a part, it's meant to protect us, right? And the reason we develop it is to protect ourselves from outside rejection or shame. So if I can catch myself doing that thing before my parent or my teacher or my friends shame me for it, I won't get excluded. I won't be called out. I won't be called a loser. I won't be abandoned. So now I developed this inner critic that's always like, oh my God, what are you doing wrong? Like, stop it. You're so gross. You're so whatever. You're so stupid. You're so lazy. You're so fat. You're so whatever the critical voice says. The one that says all of those horrible things to you, like I said, you're too needy could be another one. You never finish what you started. At some point today, I'd like you to write down the main critiques you tend to give yourself, or that voice. It's not you, by the way. It's that voice. Well, it is you. It's a part of you. And I actually want you to love that part because it's trying to protect you. But I want you to write down the main critiques you tend to give yourself on repeat. Like just take a notebook and grab something on your phone. Write down those top like 3 to 5 of them. Okay? Because I'm again going to bet you some money that those critical words are exactly what you heard most from other people growing up, or at least they were implied from other people. Because they were never yours. They were never your critiques of yourself. They were just what you learned to start fixing in yourself from other people. And the crazy thing about that is you were learning what was wrong with you from people who had already been broken by the system. So the things that you think are wrong with you aren't wrong with you. They were just passed down from previous generations that thought this is how we do things now. That's not okay. So I also want to point out, this is such an elegant system, right? Like this is actually brilliant that our bodies and our minds learn to do this. But it also invites us to take a step back and go, hey, wait a minute. Are those criticisms valid? And even if some of those qualities are true, do they mean that everyone will hate that about me? And even if some people do dislike me for those qualities, does that mean I'll never have people who like me as I have those qualities, or maybe because I have those qualities? And does that mean I'm not lovable or deserving of good things? So you see where I'm going with this? Those things that you've been hating about yourself aren't actually the problem. It's your belief that they make you unworthy in the eyes of others that is the problem. And okay, so this is such a cool system. It's problematic, but it's so, again, elegant. Your belief that it makes you unworthy is the problem, because what it does is it keeps you playing small. It keeps you from taking up space that's required to fully shine and let your magnetic self show, your freak flag fly. I love to talk about that with my clients. It is the thing that's making you dim yourself so that people don't find you as attractive as you actually are, okay? So let's take the typical example of women being told from childhood that they need to be skinny to be worthy, okay? We see that a lot. Is that true? Are there really no quality people out there who find a not skinny woman attractive? Come on, we know that. Is that the reason you're not in a good relationship? It's because you're not skinny enough. We know that's not true. Or is it possible that you're not in a good relationship because you decided that you don't deserve a high quality person since you're not skinny, because someone else told you that, right? So you lowered your standards for what you'll accept. You hid yourself as you were dating. You kind of dimmed yourself. You tried to even just physically suck yourself in. And then you waited to be picked, because I don't get to pick, right? If I'm not good enough, I don't get to pick. I will be lucky to be chosen. So you waited to be picked instead of being the picker. You stopped being choosy. You stopped having your standards because you decided you didn't get to have those anymore. So who are you going to end up with? If you're dimming yourself, if you're not being your authentic self, if you're not shining, if you're defining all of your worth through your looks, who are you going to end up with? You're going to attract. Your signal is going to be giving out horrible vibes that are saying, I'm not worthy, and I will totally destroy myself trying to be enough for you. So who does that attract? It attracts narcissists. It attracts takers. It attracts selfish people. It attracts broken people who, by the way, we can go into, we probably won't today, but why that hurts. Go back to my episode on narcissism, okay? These people are struggling too. Unfortunately, their struggles become a threat to other people, but they are struggling too, again, with feelings of not being worthy. But the whole point here is you didn't not get the person because you're not worthy, or actually because you're not skinny enough, which therefore you thought made you not worthy. You didn't get the person because you didn't believe you were worthy, and so you settled. You attracted less than what you deserve. But what if you had gone into the world with the belief that you are radiant and stunning, and you were picky about who you spend time with, who gets to spend time with you? Let's think about it that way. And you laughed and you expressed yourself fully. You wore the beautiful clothes that you love, and you showed up with so much self-love and confidence that people literally couldn't take their eyes off of you. We all know not skinny women who people can't take their eyes off of because they're radiant, because they're letting their light shine. That's pretty much how it goes in that movie. Remember with Amy Schumer? What is it called? I Feel Pretty, right? So she has an accident that causes her to see herself in like a model's body, like a stereotypical model body. And the interesting part is the rest of the world still sees her as she is. She just perceives herself differently. And suddenly all the doors of the world open for her, relationships, job, everything, because her confidence and presence changed based on what she believes about herself and what she deserves, because she thinks she's meeting the ideal beauty standards for women. Now, quick side note, I do acknowledge that these standards exist and that they do affect how some people choose partners, okay? But something else I want you to consider is, do you really want a man or any partner who picks you primarily based on how you conform to stereotypical beauty standards? Or would you like to attract someone who sees and admires all the different aspects that make you amazing? That's love. That's connection. That's what you deserve. So if you stop molding yourself into being what the more superficial people are looking for, you have the radiance and the authenticity to attract somebody who will love you for all of you instead of just your outer shell. If you love what you're hearing and you're ready to take your life to the next level, consider working with me one-on-one. I can see clients located in Arizona, Minnesota, and Ohio. Imagine where you could be 1 year from now if you start your healing journey today. I hope that makes you stop and think about how much more powerful you could be to get what you want if you were to show up with true self-love, confidence, and compassion. Your signal and beacon in the world can be so much more powerful. So, ironically, like going back to what I was saying, that defense mechanism, the introjection that developed, it's actually the thing keeping you from really self-actualizing. It keeps you from having all the big things you want in your life, the true, intense, beautiful, solid love, right? And that's not to hate on that protective part, right? It's been doing an insanely important job all these years, especially when you didn't have the option to walk away from people who wanted you to change. Okay, that was literally survival. But right now, it's continuing to keep you small and following rules that really aren't for you anymore. And I will admit, if you want to live an average life, though this will work, it'll keep you safe. But will it keep you happy? No. You know that. It's not keeping you happy. All the ways that I let my interject still run the show, it's still not keeping me happy. Because what does shame do? It keeps you in line, it keeps you small, it keeps you following the rules, and it keeps you from being yourself. And I have a question for you. Do any of the brightest lights on our planet have a habit of doing any of those things? The people who changed the world, so people I listed before, the like super change makers, nah, they didn't worry about all that. And if they did, they moved past it. How about pop stars, tech giants, peacemakers, impactful politicians? They stopped caring so much about following the rules and they let their freak flag fly. Do some Pink here. Pink, the superstar, right? She owns how powerful she is, how much space she can take up, how loud she can be, all the things women aren't supposed to be, her anger, all of it. And I don't know about you, but I think she's living the life that I would love to live. Does this feel relatable to you? Does this feel like that gorgeous invitation to expand, to be who you really are? Not to be bigger than you are, not to be a show off, not to be any of those things. No, just to be you. Every single one of the people out there who's living that beautiful, loud, and authentic life, they had to have the courage to stop letting that interject run the show. Despite the hate, yes, the hate that it brought from some. There are people out there who hate Pink, believe it or not. There you go. There are a lot of people out there who hate Taylor Swift, okay? But that's the funny thing, because in order to be loved by the right people, you have to express yourself so fully that you'll also become repulsive to the ones that aren't for you. So I want to also give the disclaimer. Do you necessarily want to live that big or visible as some of these pop stars? No, I don't either, right? But I bet you'd like more of yourself to be out there, to be yourself more, to have more magnetic relationships and experiences, right? I think we all would. And I'm telling you, these people, even the people in your life who aren't living quite so pop star big, but are living big lives, they didn't get the relationships or the financial security or the accolades by playing it safe or hiding. And I know you know that. So this is just more evidence that shame isn't helping you thrive. It's only helping you, I want to say survive, but really get by. It's not the formula. Can you think of a time that shame got the long-term outcome for you that you were looking for? And where you got to continue with that outcome and feel calm and happy with the methods you were using. So like, again, let's go back to the weight thing for women. Okay. If you're a woman who's in my age range, you've done some dieting, I'm sure, because you were raised here and you were told, again, got to be skinny to be safe and happy and loved and all the things. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Sorry, in our family, we love the line from Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. Love it, love it, love it. So y'all get to hear it now. Okay, so you did the dieting. You lost some weight. People even told you, "Oh my God, you look amazing. What'd you do differently?" And you're like, "Yes, I finally cracked the code." And then you get to a point where you're like, "Well, this isn't sustainable." And I miss pleasure in food as well. I'm not saying go overindulge all the time, but I'm saying food is also a pleasure source. And when we have to diet, we're missing out on macronutrients we actually need. It's not just about pleasure. You usually have to cut something that you actually need long term. So, was it sustainable? Did you sustain it? Okay. In the rare case that you sustained it, did it feel good to sustain? Do you feel at ease? Do you feel at peace? Do you feel like you're listening to your body every single day in every single situation? I know you don't. I know you don't. And it's uncomfortable, and your body is meant to be bigger than what you've made it be. And that's okay. You're allowed to take up that space. So I want you to consider that. Yeah, shame got you some wins in your life, but they weren't sustainable wins, and they weren't maybe authentic to you. All right. So this is the full circle question. After you realize that shame, has been effective in small ways, but not sustainable ways, I want you to ask yourself this question. Why did you want the thing that shame was driving you to do? To weigh a certain amount, to be worthy of love, to have the GPA, to get the job, to get the career. Because I doubt it had anything to do with the scale or the GPA. Those numbers don't mean shit. The man who wants to be 6 feet tall, it's not about being 6 feet tall. There's nothing inherently valuable about being 6 feet tall. It's all about some standard that society has set that says this will prove that you're worthy. And if I'm worthy, then I believe I can have good relationships with others. I can have the security I want in my life. I can have the financial safety. I can have the people I want. You are not here on this planet to meet some ridiculous metrics that, by the way, were set by a patriarchal, white supremacy, colonialism system. That's what it was all set by. And we can go into a whole other side of how men are trained to be competent and women are trained to be small. And that is keeping us on a rat race that will never get us to wake up and question the system that's keeping us there. Question the people who are just not just benefiting, profiting in obscene ways and then making laws about our planet that actually ruin the planet. We are all in the matrix. We're all in a trance because they're keeping us believing that we're not worthy. You are not here to be in that rat race. That is the greatest gift that we can all have in waking up someday. We are not here to prove that we are worthy. We are. And when you know that, everything changes. It doesn't stick all the time. We've been just programmed so much. But you aren't here to meet those ridiculous metrics. You are here to have a rich life, to feel love and connection and pleasure, and to express yourself to the fullest. You are here to let your light shine. It makes me emotional. You are here to let your light shine through the kaleidoscope that is you. Only when you do that can you be what you were supposed to be here in this world. Only when you do that can you feel real joy and safety. And only when you do that can you make the world a better place. I myself have been struggling a lot with who am I to have so much goodness? I experience so much grief over the pain around the world. I have to continue to go back that the more stable I become, the more I have to give. That I will be a responsible steward of financial security and a voice in the world. And that's a big responsibility, right? But when you're guided by compassion and a warm heart, you don't use those things to get power over other people. You use them to help them join you, to help them also get stronger with you. So anything you try to accomplish through shame is tied to that broken system. You want to break the patriarchy? Stop playing their game. Stop playing it the way they taught you to. And you can never, ever bring yourself the safety or joy that you're seeking by playing according to their rules. So I want you to stay tuned for my next episode where we'll learn what will get you the joy and safety that you want and deserve. Yes, it's the tenderness, but we're going to go through this step by step. and some evidence for how that works. It is so much better than you could imagine. And the best part is that you get to enjoy the experience. It's not dieting. It's not changing who you are. It's not being better and pushing yourself in all of those ways. By the way, when you're in alignment with yourself, you will work hard because you will be inspired, but it'll feel so different. It won't feel harmful and overwhelming. It will feel exciting and hard, but it will be such a good hard. So, in the meantime, see if you can catch that inner critic today. Write down that list. Oh man, I'm going to get emotional again. I want you to thank her or him or them for trying to protect you for all these years. But I also want you to let them know that you're going to learn new ways of keeping yourself and them safe, and that they are loved and they get to be a part of you. We're not listening to that meanness anymore. We don't talk to ourselves that way anymore. All right. Whew. Thank you for listening today. This is just another way for you to stop chasing and start choosing. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Resourced Podcast. My hope is that you learned at least one practical tool you can apply to your life today to move in the direction of your dreams. If you found this content helpful, be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a review, and consider subscribing to my email list, which is linked in the show notes. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. What step will you take today?